Author is funded by the Pacific Northwest Writers Association, supporting writers from pen to publication since 1955. To learn more about the PNWA and their yearly conference, please go to pnwa.org. Hi, this is Bill Kenower of Author Magazine, and I'm here in Seattle, Washington with suspense writer extraordinaire Laurie R. King. Laurie, welcome to Author.
Thank you very much.
So, did you ever study it at all? Study writing? Or,
no.
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 So how did it begin, the actual saying, I'm going to write a story? When did that begin?
Well, I really started writing when I was in my 30s. My first foray into fiction, as it were, was shortly after I finished my MA thesis. And I graduated, and we went off to England. And I experimented with writing a science fiction novel, which I got about halfway into it and realized I had no clue how the novel was going to end. Yeah. And I had 2 small children, so that was sort of on the back shelf for a while. And then about 3 years later, I sat down when my son went into preschool 3 whole mornings a week.
Those are nice mornings, aren't they?
Yeah. And I started writing the first of the Mary Russell books.
Began with that.
Yeah, as a way of telling the story of how a young girl grows up.
You know, maybe you were just kind of unconscious in a way at that time because you were just trying to get into the storytelling thing. I would always be intimidated by introducing a character like Sherlock Holmes, who already exists, and taking over where Conan Doyle left off, but maybe it didn't even cross your mind.
The benefits of ignorance.
Right.
Yeah, because I hadn't read the Sherlock Holmes stories since, the Speckled Band in high school, and high school had been a number of years before. I think if I had been aware of the size of the canon, of the enthusiasm of Sherlockians, of exactly what I was getting into, I probably would have been very intimidated. But as I said, I was ignorant. I liked the character. I thought it would be an interesting way to play off that character with a very similar person who happened to be young, female, 20th century, different in a lot of ways, but very similar. And so I in my lovely innocence, I went forward.
Now, I have a strange and kind of useless talent, but I can usually know if people outline when I meet them.
Okay.
And I'm going to guess, there's a range, but I'm going to guess you fall in the not very much range, that you have just a few plot points that you have sort of picked out. Is that it?
Yeah.
Ending? Do you have an ending?
Sometimes. And when I first started, the first probably 7 books or so, I had to have a very clear final scene. I could change it somewhat, but it was almost like I needed to have a final point to sort of winch myself along. Yeah. Like when you're pulling yourself out of a ditch, you've got a fixed point that you're able to pull yourself on. And I was working on one book, and it suddenly occurred to me that I didn't have an ending in mind. And I had a really tough couple of days because I thought, oh my God, how do I do this now? So I just pushed forward thinking, well, it will get there. And indeed, it did.
Now, when it got there, did you look back on what you had written in chapter 2 and 3 and realize to some degree you had been setting it up?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Isn't that interesting?
There's a very efficient, those of us who don't outline, there's a very efficient mechanism in the back of the mind that keeps track of plot points. And I can tell this because if I ever get to a point where I really don't want to write, I'd rather go and clean the oven. It's what's called writer's block, which I don't really believe in, but there's a certain point where you think, oh, I feel so ill with this producing of words that I just can't. If I get to that point, I often, if I look back at, just don't write, just read what I have, I'll find that, in fact, I was painting myself into a corner. And I didn't see it coming.
And that's why you're feeling so wretched.
Something in the back of my head is saying, wait. And indeed, if I look at it, otherwise, I mean, I'd be really in trouble, because there I'd be, and I'd have to tear out however many pages. But little alarm bells go off and say, stop.
You know, I've talked to a lot of mystery and suspense writers, or writers where there is a mystery to be solved, however it's done, whether it's around a cozy tea room or whatever. And I've always felt that that whodunit is inaccurate, that it's more of a why done it, that the who is not nearly as interesting as the why.
Well, the whodunit came from the sort of classic era of mostly British mysteries, that you have a puzzle, and the puzzle is the satisfying part of it. It's not as popular now because we demand more of our crime novels. We demand that they have an emotional truth as well as just the puzzle. Agatha Christie is a perfect example of, I mean, really it doesn't matter who done it in her books. You could almost sort of pull one out of the hat, like one of those children's choose your ending.
Right.
And if it's this person, then you make this choice, and if it's that person, you make that. But it doesn't have anything to do with what the book has to say to you as a person, and it's a different kind of story. And there are people who love those kinds of classical whodunits.
Right.
But most of us require a why done it.
The 24th book is coming out now, or 25th? What are we on?
Yeah, I think I'm 23. I think that
23.
I'm working on 24 now.
And so it's a lot of books, and yet, do you have the experience still in the middle, say, of writing 24, where you think, this is a disaster? This isn't, I don't know, why are they paying me to do this? I don't even know. Does that happen to you at all?
Oh, I don't think there's a writer out there who doesn't think this is the one where they're going to find out I don't know crap. I just don't know anything. Yeah, that's you continually think that this is the one where they're going to say, you got to give us back the advance, because this is just unpublishable.
So you go through that. What do you do? Because I think, you know, a lot of some of the people watch this probably are trying to would love to write their first novel or try to get it going. And they go through that, and they must think, oh, it shows that I can't do this, I'm no good. But you've gone through it. So what would you say to them that you say to yourself at those times, besides, you've done it 23 times, Laura, you can do it again? There must be other things you say to yourself.
Well, yeah, I think that it's a habit of, you know, you just keep pushing on, and you've got a voice in the back of your head saying, oh, you're so stupid. But
regardless, that voice is always sort of there.
Yeah. There's a letter that Van Gogh writes to his brother Theo about the blank canvas, where he says, you know, every time a blank canvas is the enemy, and it just says, you know nothing. And that's so true of pretty much any creative enterprise, is that you start with a blank canvas and you know nothing.
You do.
But I think that for a new writer, the biggest temptation is when you finish the first book to think, I've got a book, I've got to do something with it. And the thing that you're aiming for is a career. I mean, you are a writer, you're not the author of a book. It's one of the real temptations of this world of e-publication, that if you send something out to publishers, and you know 6 of them, and there's only 6 of them left in the whole world, right. If they all turn you down, the temptation is, well, I'm going to publish it myself, and you know I'll make a fortune. It doesn't usually work that way, and it's much better to continue to write. You finish the first book and you go on to the second. I had 3 books out, 3.5 books on my shelf before I got published. And I think they taught me a lot about writing as I was waiting for publication.
So I've got one more question for you, and what I'd like you to do is finish this sentence for me. All right?
Okay.
You can do it. If writing has taught me anything, it's taught me what?
If writing has taught me anything, it's taught me that I am a hard worker. I always used to think of myself as being very laid back and lazy because I enjoyed reading. And since I have become a professional writer and basically supporting the family, I have found that when you really love doing something, you are willing to do it a lot. So the disadvantage of being self-employed is always that you don't have someone with a time card, but if you love what you're doing, those 60-hour weeks, that's just what you do.